They internalize these messages, right? If you hear that you're lazy enough times, you're going to believe it. And so I get kids come in and they say, I'm just kind of lazy. I go, really? Like, it's no surprise that something like 50% of kids with ADHD also have either a depressive disorder or an anxiety disorder. Like, it's no wonder.
Oh, absolutely. Welcome to the Executive Function for All podcast. Today we're joined by Dr. Gabe Casher. Gabe is a licensed psychologist and founder of Panorama Psychology in Denver, Colorado. He specializes in working with teens, young adults, and families and has a real gift for helping families move past the frustration and disconnection that often comes with executive function challenges. In this episode, we'll explore the emotional and relational side of EF and the cycles parents and teens get stuck in. Gabe brings a warm, grounded presence that I think every parent and teen will connect with. Let's begin. Gabe, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I've admired your work, and I know some families that have worked with you, and they just rave about you. So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, it's I love my work. I've been doing it for a while. I did this because I had a good therapist when I was a teenager. I wanted to be him and try to make the dream come true.
I think you have. So let's jump right in. So I'm sure you hear all the time about big blow-ups between things like missing assignments and missed chores between parents and students. When you look underneath, what's really going on there?
Yeah, it's all the time. This is like, I don't know, over half of what I talk about all day with the families I work with. And what we try to get to the heart of is that it's not usually executive functioning or tasks that people are arguing over. It's like these competing emotions. And so for parents, it's fear. It's the fear of my kid is not going to do well. My kid's going to struggle. My kid is going to fail. And there's also parent shame. I'm not doing well enough. I don't know what to do. I'm in over my head. And so those are kind of the emotions on the parent side. And then the emotions on the child side, that one is also a lot of shame. And so, kids with EF struggles, ADHD, autism, learning disabilities, even just the kids who get EF struggles, not because their brain is different, but because they've been through some stuff, they feel shame just as much, if not more, because it was actually on this podcast, one of your guests shared the statistic of something. Kids with ADHD maybe get corrected 20,000 times more by third grade or something. And so they get this, they internalize the shame. And so you basically get these two shame and fear brains trying to interact with each other, and everything gets lost in there. When
you speak to the fear, obviously I'm sure it's different for every parent, but are there common themes behind some of these fears?
All the parents that I meet are good parents, and they're trying their best, and they're trying the best with what they have and what they know. Some of them are anxious. Some of them are anxious because of stuff that they've been through themselves, or some of them took a long time to graduate college themselves and they want their kids to, be more traditional than they were or something. Yeah, some parents have been through stuff. Most of these parents are normal parents. These are normal reactions when you see your kids struggling. We all want our kids to do well. We all want them to succeed, and we all want things to go relatively smoothly for them. And so when we see that there's cracks in the foundation or that there's some bumps they're going over, it makes sense that parents get a little scared.
Yeah. How do you interrupt that fear dynamic?
It's really hard because really what parents need is proof, I think. They need to be proven wrong. I say things like, I want you to be a parent. I don't want you to also be a tutor and an executive functioning coach and a therapist and a pediatrician, and a reading interventionist. I want you to just be a parent. And so sometimes identifying outside supports is a good first step. That's what both of us do. And then parents are free to just be parents and to just be supportive. And then when shit hits the fan, when things aren't going well, or when there's 15 missed assignments, the parent doesn't have to be the one to fix it. The parent can be the one to support the kid. And so the parent can, instead of saying, what's going on with all these assignments? Let's look at it together. Let's get in here. Let's do that. They can say, whoa, buddy, what's going on? That sucks. That must be really hard. I'm sorry that's happening. Have you talked to Brandon lately? Have you talked to Gabe?
Yeah. Do you have any weekly routines around that you recommend to families?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of think that the online grade books are one of the worst things that's happened to family systems.
Honestly, the worst.
It drives me nuts. And I mean, it's, and I think there's some that give notifications on your phone, it's missed assignment. And, parent will be at work and they'll get a notification. Your kid missed an assignment. It's hijacking the parent brain and the relationships. I'm not saying don't keep track of your kids, especially for a kid who does need support. And so, yeah, a weekly check-in is a great idea. The struggle with that is we all have a hard time just leaving it there. It's let's do the weekly check-in, and then wherever that goes, we have to be okay. We have to know that we're going to have another weekly check-in next week, and we don't have to do anything in between. And in the between time, between this Monday and next Monday, that's when we can just be parents.
Yeah. Your story reminds me a lot of when I was an 8th grade teacher with notifications, the students would see it go in the grade book and they were like terrified to go home because they knew their parent got it. And it was just like this wild dynamic of that their brain was hijacked for the rest of the day as well.
Yeah, they go into a panic mode, especially if they're, if this is a pattern in their family, when they struggle, their parents get on them about it and ground them or take away their stuff or, do all these things that are really meant to help, but have this inadvertent effect of increasing shame and also creating distance in the relationship. So these are the same kids who go home and they go straight to their room. They don't even want to look at their parents because they know what their parent has seen. So they go straight to their room, they isolate. And what does that do to a parent? Makes them worry more, makes them probably try a little harder to get through to their kid. And sometimes that can come across as micromanaging or nagging or something like that. And then what does the kid do? They isolate more. Then the parent gets more scared. And it's like this vicious cycle.
Yeah. So what do you tell parents, let's say it's a high school student, missing assignments, keep dinging, they're having the weekly check-ins. I'm sure that feels helpless for the parent. How do you begin to navigate all that?
Yeah, the first step is probably parents learning to self-soothe a little bit. Like, hey, I get you're scared when you see those missing assignments. Like, what can you do in that moment to do what's best for the relationship? Your kid is probably going to be fine. Most kids end up being fine. Your kid's probably going to be fine. And in that moment, how can you prioritize the relationship? And I'm not saying don't talk to your kid about the grade, but the way you talk to them about it matters. So I talk about kind of getting under the nagging or the tracking or the fixing and talking about the emotion and going to the kid. And instead of saying, what happened with that assignment? Going to your kid and being like, I saw this. And you can even say like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I saw there's a missing assignment, but not in like a punitive way or a judgmental way, like a way of saying like, hey, like what's going on? Just see what they have to say. Like leave it there. And kids will like surprise us sometimes. They'll have a lot to say.
I want to come back to what you said because I think it's such an important point. I'm sure as a parent, it's very scary to see these missings.
Yes.
You and I confront this all day, every day. And even the simple fact of noticing like there's fear there, I even think that gets you a long way, right? Mm-hmm. Like we see so many students with missing assignments who eventually figure it out. And again, you and I are big believers on consequences and clear expectations and everything else.
Natural consequences.
Yeah.
Not parent consequences.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
maybe some parent consequences, depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. But keeping that relationship strong for the long term, from my opinion, is that has a higher ROI than the grades for most students.
Yeah. And we have the benefit as professionals in this space, like we can zoom out. And so we see kids, I'm thinking of a kid that I met when he was a sophomore in high school. And this kid was very much like me, like, ADHD, just kind of, backpacks a mess, rooms a mess, disorganized, can't focus, bouncing off the walls. And now he's in college finishing his junior year. And he's like doing great. And he figured it out. And somewhere along the line, his frontal lobe kind of turned on. And it's not because of any consequences that parents did or any external thing. He just needed a couple extra years. I think the research now is showing that the ADHD frontal lobe is about 2 years behind a typical developing frontal lobe in terms of developing. And so we get this benefit of like zooming out. And now when I see a sophomore struggling like that kid did, I have this knowledge in my mind of all these other kids who have eventually figured it out and are doing fine. Maybe it was a little bumpy, but like they figured it out. Parents don't have that. Like parents don't have that same framework to pull from that makes me feel confident. Like I meet these kids and I'm like, I'm not worried about you. Like I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah. If we keep doing the right things, they're almost always okay. If we keep doing the right things, right?
Yeah.
And working on mental health, working on the organizational skills. The hard thing for me is growth is not linear, which I think is so hard, right? It's like kind of where you're speaking to. It's like you grind away for years and then out of nowhere, you're like, how did I
figure this out?
Yeah. It's not this stair step.
When did I grow up?
Yeah, correct.
And the other thing I find myself telling parents a lot, and telling families is I don't know how many times I say this in a week. I say, I'm not worried about your kid in the long term, but I am a little bit worried about your relationships in the short term. Mm-hmm. That's what I find myself saying a lot to parents. So like, I think your kid is going to be fine. And I say that so that parents maybe can soak in a little bit of that. And then I focus on the relationship. And it's like you, especially for a high schooler, like parents have very little impact on how well their high schoolers are going to do. I think parents think they have more of an impact than they do.
That's a hard reality.
Oh, it's a really hard reality. I know. But what they do have a strong impact on is their relationships. I'm like, your kid is going to do as well as they're going to do in school, and there's not much you can do about it. you can set them up with the right supports. You can make sure they have help. You can make sure they have a good IEP. You can make sure they have a clean desk at home and a stable home life. But you staying on them about homework and you trying to develop strategies for them, like, probably isn't going to change all that much. But you overdo that, it is going to affect the relationship. So I try to get families thinking more about the relationship. Think about, I want, when your kid is 25 and is depressed and is drinking too much, because that happens, I want them to call you. I don't want them to think, oh, my parents pushed me away. And we know a lot of, this was me, a kid with ADHD, gets to college, gets to grad school, stress, think I'm doing great, but kind of silently suffering. Like, I want to call my parents, and I don't want parents that pushed me away in high school out of trying to get me to succeed to the point that I don't feel comfortable going to them.
Yeah. Playing the long game.
It's such a long game.
I see this a lot, and I'm sure you do as well, where as parents, there's a missing math assignment. We feel like it's going to be the end of the world because now my kid's not getting into the Ivy League and this and this and this. And it's like, wait, let's zoom out really quick.
Yeah, slow down. Like, let's play that out. What if they don't get into the Ivy League? What happens? Okay, they get into a different school, or they don't get into a school. Like, what's the worst case scenario here? They don't get into a university and they do a year at ACC, they do a year at a community college. Great. I think that's actually good for a lot of these kids.
Yeah, I agree. You speak a lot about the cycle that parents and teens get stuck in. What does that cycle look like?
It's fear and shame and then behavioral. I don't know where it starts. And I talk about this with families because the point is that I don't think it's like any person's fault. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, this started with you, kid, because you missed an assignment, or like, this started with you, mom, because you're anxious, or this started with you, dad, because you're overbearing. Like, I don't think it starts with anybody. It's this cycle that starts really slowly and then it develops and grows. And maybe it's less of a cycle and more of a spiral. Like, sometimes it can be a spiral. And so usually it's some version of kid is struggling in some way, either kind of normally or maybe a little bit more than normal. And parents have some fear or anxiety about it. And so that causes them to do something. It causes them to check in a little more, causes them to keep tabs a little closer, causes them to tell their kid they're not allowed to be in their room between these times of days. They have to be working on their homework at the kitchen table, whatever it causes them to do. And then that has an effect on the teenager usually. And the teenager will, the teens all want to be a little bit independent, and they don't deal well with that kind of micromanagey feeling. And so they'll isolate. That increases the parent's fear. So they latch on a little harder, nag a little more. Then the kid isolates even more, and that makes the parent even more scared. So it can really spiral. Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like none of those in isolation are bad. Like, doing your homework at the kitchen table could be helpful for a lot of students.
I think that's a great idea.
But it's just when it starts to spiral and then it builds upon each other, and it feels like the gripping occurs, right?
Yeah, and when families can get underneath that and talk about the feeling. So instead of a parent going to their kid and saying, "What happened to this assignment? Where'd it go? Or what? Why aren't you doing it? Or why aren't you on top of things?" Going to them and being honest and saying, "Hey, when I see this, I have this scared feeling. It's actually," and maybe even admit, it's kind of a surprising feeling. Like, it feels bigger than it should be. And teens can handle this. They actually like vulnerability, right? It works. You go to them and say, "Hey, buddy, dad is scared. Dad is getting a little activated right now when I see that you're not doing this assignment on time." And just see where that goes. And it's not like it's your kid's job to reassure you or to soothe you or make you feel better, but just being honest about, this is the feeling, instead of letting that feeling cause you to go off.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of research recently on that vulnerability, right? Mm-hmm. And just even being able to identify that emotion is such good modeling, right? A lot of times, I know in my life, a lot of these behaviors occurred because I didn't know what was going on emotionally.
Yeah, I'm amazed. Honestly, I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm seeing so many kids who are able to identify emotions younger. And I don't know if this is good social emotional skills training in schools, or if it's something that's just in the water. I don't know. But I tell them, I don't think I knew how to identify my feelings until I was 25, Yeah. I don't think I had any clue how I was feeling. And I'm always so impressed with kids these days of being able to say, I'm feeling whatever. I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And parents, we're this different generation where we weren't trained in that way. And so in some ways, the kids are ahead of us.
And they're going back to the parents who are worried about jobs and universities. There is research coming out about how people with emotional awareness do better in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny with all this AI stuff that you and I follow, right? It's going to be, I'm a core believer, this is my tinfoil hat theory, but I'm a core believer that's going to be the game. Like when you can look up every answer, right? Or every answer is at your fingertip. A lot of that emotional awareness is the people you are going to see who are going to separate themselves.
And where do we build emotional awareness? Like the first place we build that from is our families. We get that from the second we're born. We learn about emotions when we look at our mom and she smiles back at us, or when we cry and somebody picks us up. We learn that from day one.
What about the shame? We've spoken to the fear. Tell me more about the shame you see in students.
I mean, it's both ways. Like students, they internalize these messages, right? If you hear that you're lazy enough times, you're going to believe it. Or if you hear that you are impossible to motivate, you're going to believe it, And so I get kids come in and they say, I'm just kind of lazy. I go, really? Like, who told you that? Like, how'd you get this idea? Like, it's no surprise that something like 50% of kids with ADHD also have either a depressive disorder or an anxiety disorder. Like, it's no wonder.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's really hard to have EF struggles. You get a lot of negative feedback from the world. People get frustrated with you all the time. People say, hey, get back here. Where are you? Why aren't you listening? Put that away. Stop doing that. Start doing this. So, these, people with ADHD especially, and really like any EF challenges, I think they internalize that shame. And I don't want parents to add to that. So I talk to parents about like, your job is not to they got enough shame. Like we don't need to pile it on.
Yeah.
And that can happen, where kids are hearing it all day at school and then they come home and get more of it. It's like, oh man, like this kid is, really starting to feel lousy about themselves. Parents also feel shame, right? Because parents, like, we don't know what we're doing. These kids didn't come with a manual. And so we are winging it. We also, a lot of us didn't have parents that were really cued into executive functioning and emotional intelligence. Like most parents that I meet didn't have that model. And so we're trying to do this thing right now of being like emotionally involved parents. We're trying to stay on top of things. We're trying to be there for our kids in a way that's really new. And then when things aren't going perfectly, we're like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah. And from my experience, I'm curious if you see this as well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Usually there's a parent themselves with ADHD.
Oh, yeah.
And then when they see the child not getting ready on time, not turning assignments, it triggers their experience. And now we're really off and running.
Spot on. Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, we get so many families where like, well, the referral is to do an evaluation, ADHD eval for a child or an autism eval for a teenager. And we do the feedback session at the end of it with the family. And we tell them, yes, they do have this diagnosis. And then the parent goes, when can I schedule my evaluation?
Very much. Or they're in tears. And a lot of it, because again, being vulnerable myself as a father with ADHD, I know this research and I catch myself getting into these negative cycles as well. Mm-hmm. And I realize that a lot of the work that I have to do for my children is work I have to do on myself so I don't get triggered by the stuff that I see. It's
so complex because we want things to be easier for our kids than they were for us. So we don't want them to make the same mistakes we made. Yeah. I mean, this teenager that I'm talking about, that I mentioned earlier, like they have a parent that really struggled, with ADHD. And now they have this kid with ADHD. And I think it brings up a lot of things for the parent themselves and them going and doing their own work and learning to have some self-compassion and understanding like, hey, I'm not a failure. I'm not lazy. Like I'm actually doing pretty well. And my kid is too. Like it's been powerful.
Well, and that's such great modeling for that child because teenagers don't listen to what we say, right?
No.
But they watch what we do.
Yep. Yeah, I tell people that I'm in the business of generational change sometimes.
I love that.
And that, these things go back generations. You have ADHD, what were your parents like? And let's talk about your dad's dad. And let's talk not only about what kind of brain he was born with, but let's talk about what kind of environment your parents were brought up in. Some people are really born with an ADHD brain, like there's no doubt about it. But you can give people ADHD symptoms pretty easily. You can give it through a chaotic environment. You can give it through trauma. You can give it through sleep deprivation. You can give it through parental absence. Like there's a lot of ways that you can give somebody ADHD symptoms.
A question I get all the time, which I'm sure you do as well, is we've tried apps, charts, rewards, consequences, nothing seems to stick. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, my general rule is if you've tried 3 good strategies, really tried, like given them a chance to work, you've stayed consistent with it, like maybe at least for a few weeks or longer, and it's still not working, then this isn't a strategy problem. Then this is probably a relationship problem. And so that's what I look for. There's some signs that like when strategies aren't working. I mean, one is one I pay attention to is when kids seem to be doing well, but they're not internalizing anything. They're just doing well because parents are propping them up because the parents have all the systems. That's called being like an external frontal lobe for your kid. And we want to strengthen our kids' frontal lobes. We don't want to be their frontal lobe. And so that's sometimes a warning sign. Like if the strategies seem to be working, but the second you take any strategy away, things fall apart. Like I don't think any learning is happening.
Where do you even start shifting this dynamic, especially if the child's in high school and this has been a dynamic that's been going on for a while?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, there's a relationship disturbance that is a barrier to any strategy ever being able to work. And so we have to back off from strategies and talk about the relationship. And so, it's like, there's some kind of low-hanging fruit. It's like some advice that I give is like, try to have one interaction with your kid a day where you don't have an agenda. Like just try to talk to them and listen to what they have to say, listen to them talk to you about their video games or their friends or whatever, and don't have any agenda. It's, so many of these families, like they've just gotten into this cycle, this pattern of like every interaction is like, hey, did you do this? Hey, did you do this? Just like their parents are like this, like a running checklist, And it's like back off and just like that, those micro interactions can really like build a relationship.
I really like that. Now coming at it through like wonder, right? Like genuinely wondering like, what is going on in your world?
Yeah. Yeah. Being curious. Like these kids have amazing lives and amazing minds, like to not be curious about what's going on for them and what's going on inside of them. It's like, it's silly. Like there's amazing stuff in there. We should want to know about it. And it's good for the relationship. It builds the relationship.
This tight line, right? It's like, we've got to get this done. And I care about you.
Right. It's a fine line. It's a really fine line. Another thing that I talk about with parents is sometimes I'll challenge parents to stop fixing for 3 days and just see what happens. And sometimes their kids will fall apart. And either that's a sign that their kid really needs more help than they can provide, or it's a sign that they've been propping up their kid this whole time.
What are ways you see people prop up their kid that they could easily take a step back?
Yeah, I mean, like the simple one is like just all these daily reminders. So like think about like a morning routine. And it's like, you have parents being their kids' personal checklist, hey, do this, hey, do that, hey, do that. And it's like, we can build their executive function skills. We're not just going to say like, hey, you're on your own, buddy, good luck. But we can like slowly build their independence in their ability to manage a routine. And so maybe it starts with, hey, I'm not going to tell you everything to do. We're going to get a whiteboard, and we're going to write down, here's the things you got to do to get ready for the day. And then maybe the next step from that is, now I'm not going to write the things on your whiteboard. I'm going to help you come up with those things on your whiteboard, and you're going to write them down, the night before. And that's like, I mean, that's actually building habits instead of just being an external frontal lobe.
Okay, I want to finish with a broad question. How do you think about executive function in your work?
I love talking about executive functioning because it's at the intersection of neurobiology, which is my area, but it's also related to environment. So it's related to parenting and the world that we live in. And then it's also related to like these bigger things like global stress and social media and smartphones and all that. And so you bring all these things together. You talk about the brain that you're born with and the world that you live in and the home that you live in. And like you get this really full picture. The story that I sometimes tell is about how I was diagnosed with ADHD as a high schooler. And to this day, like I don't know if I actually have ADHD, because I also had kind of a chaotic life at that time. And we can give somebody ADHD symptoms through, I mentioned this, like through a chaotic lifestyle or through stress or through parents sometimes, can actually really cause their kid to look like somebody who has ADHD. Sleep is a big one. Screen time is a big one. Like you can give kids ADHD symptoms. And while some kids are actually born with ADHD, some kids develop these symptoms even without that brain. And for kids who really do have ADHD, like the environment can make things easier or harder for them. So if you're really born with this ADHD brain, those environmental things still matter. So things like sleep and like not shining your phone into your face for 15 hours a day, like those things really matter.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of research come out, and this speaks to your work too, is the nervous system. It's hard to have this conversation without placing more guilt, right? But like if a parent has a calm nervous system, this calm is contagious thing, right? Like it calms everyone down, and then their executive function works better.
Our nervous systems, there's no blame in this conversation because our nervous systems are just trained. They're trained from what we grow up with. And so if you're going to try to blame a parent for having an overactive nervous system, like you better blame their parents. You know?
Yeah.
And are you going to blame those parents? Now we got to talk about those people's parents, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's where, like, you know, things like mindfulness and self-soothing and, you know, for parents, it's like, that's where we start talking about generational change. Like, you can break this pattern of having hyperactive nervous systems in your family by bringing some awareness to your own nervous system, calming that down, and then seeing the effect on your kid.
And it's never too late, right? Like, even if the child's like 25 and someone's listening to this, like it's never too late.
It's so never too late. It's so never too late.
It's great stuff.
Yeah.
Where can people learn more about you and your work?
You can check out our practice. So my practice is Panorama Psychology. We're in the Highlands and in Centennial in Denver. We do therapy for kids, teens, and families. We also do evaluations for ADHD, autism, learning disabilities, differential diagnosis. And yeah, I'm on LinkedIn.
Gabe, thank you again, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Executive Function for All podcast. If today's episode brought you any value, please rate us 5 stars and share it with someone who may benefit. And remember, every small step you take builds towards your success. For resources and guidance, visit untappedlearning.com. Keep growing, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.